While right now our most affected states are California and Washington, the number of affected states, cases, and deaths will continue to rise.
114,000 cases. That's China, that's South Korea, that's Italy, that's the United States. 4,000 deaths.
And we're deeply concerned both by the alarming levels of spread and severity and by the alarming levels of inaction. We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
We first realized kind of how this was going to look during parent-teacher conferences. So the kids were off campus. We had families coming in, meeting with the teachers. More and more news started coming in that this, moving off campus and not being able to have the children here with us was going to be the way we were going.
My mom just got an email. We were watching a movie, thinking everything was normal. And then she just said, "Oh, you're not going back to school on Monday."
And we kind of launched into how are we going to do this right away? And it became like logistical. We got to pack up all their stuff. They have to have their names on their bags. Their bags have to be out in the hall. Parents have to be able to come in and get things. We have to space everything out.
Literally everything was just empty. It was just everything was on the floors, and it was a ghost town. So it was definitely a surreal moment.
Now what do we do? They're home. What is this going to look like? How we can't have the kids on video for hours and hours. How are we going to set this up? What are we going to do?
Yeah, when we first started remote learning, it was like we were building a new school.
It's just so weird. I'm used to seeing them in a classroom, the same classroom, and I'll see them in this little format, and I'm like, is this a yearbook?
It was clunky in the first few weeks, but in a beautiful, crazy, amazing way. And then we really started to hone in okay, this is what works, this doesn't.
There was also the spirit of being part of something that was larger than all of us.
You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And that's really what happened. These creative, innovative ways to make education continue to happen even when we didn't know what was going to happen next.
One of the things I'm most proud of that we did early on to help the parents and the students adjust to this new learning environment was Maria, who teaches humanities while I teach STEM. We got together and we made a video welcoming the students and another one welcoming the parents to our new learning environment. We just wanted to reach out and let the kids see our faces, say hi, let them know that we had this under control and everything was going to be okay, because we'd be together.
The staff did a tremendous job and the faculty did a tremendous job of keeping the students engaged even though they weren't together.
As an orchestra teacher for middle and upper school, during regular school, we rehearsed as an ensemble of up to 20 students playing their instruments all at once. So I had to totally rethink how I could still have it both a meaningful and educational experience for my students, with totally different tools.
The whole experience has brought out the best, the heart of this community. I mean, the way that everyone rose up to support one another, and the parents saw it, and they planned a secret drive-through parade. The entire kindergarten class drove by with balloons, and they're standing out of the sunroofs and waving and honking their horns. And I mean, you just see the teachers start crying. It's so beautiful. It's just because it was hard and it was just so special.
While we felt generally positive about the way that the spring unfolded, we were also increasingly aware of the challenges that our students were encountering during that time.
We were determined to bring the kids back on campus. If we could do it safely, we wanted to do it.
We get the call, the school wants to open, Mr. McCusker wants to open, and he wants your help.
We got to partner with the COVID response team here at school so that we could help them shape their response and keep in mind the students' well-being while they were trying to figure out how they would get us back to school safely.
At this point, it was clear that we were not going to be going back to normal anytime soon, and that it was going to take an incredibly coordinated and intense effort to do the work required to reimagine school.
Stuff changed all the time. Guidelines from the CDC, guidelines from the state, guidelines from the county changed all the time. So we would meet on one Wednesday and have a bunch of information and do a lot of brainstorming and figure it out. And then the next week, we'd read through the minutes and figure out what we had talked about. And then somebody would say, actually, that's not what we're doing now.
Working over the summer to prepare campus for a fall opening at first seemed like a tidal wave. But we were able to, step by step, make it a reality and realize how much benefit it would pay to the rest of the Manlius Pebble Hill.
We basically rebuilt the entire day, minute by minute, through the summer. And it was pretty crazy. I mean, if somebody had said, this is what you're gonna do before we did it, I don't know if we would have thought we could have done it.
There was a lot of anticipation for September 8th. I'm not sure there was ever gonna be enough preparation to really get us to the point where we were gonna feel comfortable on that first day.
I was so excited to be back in person. I was able to see my friends, and I was also really unsure of how it was going to work. I hadn't been in person in school for 6-7 months. I hadn't seen any of my teachers, any of my friends for that long, and it was exciting, but also kind of nerve-wracking at the same time.
There were some kids who were ready and raring to go and like running through the doors and so excited and so grateful to be back in person. And there were some kids who were still really nervous and really hesitant, and you can't blame them either.
MPH had done their homework regarding this pandemic and the coronavirus, and so that was evident. So as a new parent, we were asking hard questions. My husband studies infectious disease, and so we were ready. We were asking all of the questions, and they had an answer. And so for us,
I was impressed.
That was impressive, and I knew we were in good position when he had no additional questions.
The physical changes we had to make to campus in order for it to be inhabitable for the fall was remarkable. We had to evaluate every single classroom, figure out what max capacity would be, determine where teachers could teach, where students needed to be sitting, demolish several rooms and reopen them as larger spaces, transform our entire library into 2 classrooms, reconfigure a computer lab so it became the home base for one of our middle school classes, put decals on the ground that showed which side of the hallway to walk on to ensure that you had a safe physical distance from your peers, come up with a manner by which we could evaluate every family every morning to make sure that they would be safe on campus. Not every school had the human and financial resources to make this happen. And we are beyond blessed to be able to have been able to determine a dream, which was opening in the fall, and be able to make that a reality.
So I think a lot of people missed the way school used to be. So, we had a lot to adapt to, a lot to adjust to, a lot to do differently. And those memories of the way school used to be, those memories are pretty long.
It looks very strange when you walk in, all these little floating islands, and there's no one near the desks. And a lot of posters and pictures have been taken down from the walls. There's air filters in every classroom to help with filtration. And the teachers can't really walk around as much when they teach, so they have to stay at the front of the classroom. Everything's very divided.
The first couple weeks were nerve-wracking because we were like, oh gosh, can we do this? Are we gonna be able to do this? We don't want anyone to get sick. And then the more days that we had where people were able to be together and stay well, the more confidence that we had about how this was gonna go.
You're living in this pandemic. Things are gonna happen and you can't control that, so it's better to just kind of let yourself kind of go with the flow. It's what's happening is gonna happen, and it's about how you deal with it and how you cope with it.
Sometimes holding on to the past it kind of builds a jail where the bars are of our own making. We can look at those things and say, well, what is it now? What are we able to do now? And work with that, and amazing things happen. That is the soul of education.
We had to get really creative in things that we might not, I think about dining services for one thing. I mean, that was a meeting that, we're still gonna use the dining hall. We're still gonna, kids will go down at lunch, and that's it, okay, next. And this was, the idea of feeding, 400 people, within the protocols was, that was a huge challenge. We had a lot of dialogue. The performing arts department, certainly with protocols had challenges. I think back to what we did in terms of chorus. We created a musical performing arts class where we focused on, theater and stage presence. We utilized the outdoors probably more than we ever had. People had to really, think on the fly and think outside the box.
I was actually part of a club called MPH for MPH. It's a community club, but it focuses on community within the school. So we really wanted to do something to help. And so we organized this drive called Can the Pandemic. And we had people bring in a can in each hand for when they came in for COVID testing. And we ended up raising around 1,000 cans. And that equated to 980 meals, individual meals for people at the Central New York Food Bank. And it really boosted the morale of MPH, and it helped so many people.
In a school, you have educators who are also just natural learners, people who will take what they've experienced and they'll reap the benefit of the lessons learned. And that was happening everywhere you looked here.
We ask our kids every day to be problem solvers and to take the creative risks and to do all of these crazy things and put themselves out there. So it wouldn't make any sense if now, when we as teachers are being asked to take creative risks, to problem solve, to be able to kind of turn on a dime, read a situation, if we're not up to the challenge too.
COVID has made me realize that I can do a lot more than I thought I could. It knocked me down for sure. There have been times where it's been really tough and I just had like a breakdown day, like I just can't do it anymore. Even though it comes with a lot of difficulties and it pushes you down a lot, it's important to realize that there are still some highlights and there are still some positives that have come out of this.
We have grown in every conceivable manner you can think of.
As people, I think we get caught in these cycles of we're just gonna keep doing what we were doing. And MPH has always been a place where we're like, wait just a minute, let's question that. But now more than ever, we have just stopped everything and we're kind of really looking at each element and asking ourselves, is this what's best for the kids?
What this pandemic has particularly done for me is really brought it back to be incredibly student-centered.
I think that looking back, I will remember most our ability to work together to overcome difficult times.
This community was filled with helpers, and it just was such a special time through a tragedy, a world tragedy. And seeing what people and kids were capable of in the midst of just real struggle was such an inspiration.
Both my boys, they really enjoy their school, and they're incredibly thankful for the work of the administration and the staff at MPH to provide a great experience in a challenging environment.
This interconnection that MPH already had, this beautiful ember of community, we just blew on those embers, and this big fire of, this sense of, no, we really are all in this together. It wasn't just a catchphrase, it was the truth. And I think that as time went on, and we saw that, oh my gosh, we're staying on campus, we are staying well week after week after week, that got stronger.
Everybody here has really, really good intentions. Everybody here really, truly wants what is best for the people around them and for this community. And what's so cool is even when the world is turned upside down, that hasn't changed. And that kind of North Star compass of really doing what's right and what's best for everybody else is still what is guiding people. And that is really cool.
It literally sort of brings tears to my eyes to sort of think about the sort of leap of faith that we had to make as a family during the pandemic. And it was the right choice. Under the worst possible circumstances, our daughter is excelling.
I think the fact that we've been able to be in school for 6 months without significant interruption is remarkable. We're not sure still how how or if the pandemic ends. Is there an end point to the pandemic? I think the way, if we've learned anything from this pandemic, it's that we have to remain flexible, nimble, and open-minded about what we're capable of doing and accomplishing.